I'm going to quickly go over how to identify your target audience. On TikTok, I made a video talking about the importance of your target audience and why you need to be able to resonate with your people. There's a few things that you guys need to be able to determine in order to make a brand that anyone can actually give a F about. So I'm going to make this video short and sweet. And essentially, if you want your brand to look something like this, like as a whole, if you want the genre of your brand to be swaggy, because like, look at all these people swaggy, then you should pay attention. Because a lot of your brands, clothing brands specifically, typically tend to look like garbage. I'm going to be very, very honest. There's a lot of kids in the space that are trying to make a brand. You go on ChatGPT, maybe you get Canva to make your logo, and then you say it's a clothing brand. It's not a clothing brand. It's quite garbage, right? So this is why we're going to be looking at a lot of these brands and essentially be able to define your target audience, because I put so much emphasis on it. Essentially, in order to define your target audience, there's just one thing you need to understand. You need to identify your brand swag. All right, I think that's the best way to go about it. You need to be able to identify your brand swag. The reason why your brand doesn't have a target audience is because you genuinely have no swag. And I know that sounds kind of crazy to hear, but I'm not gonna lie, like a lot of your brands are kind of corny. Like I wouldn't buy from it, and neither would any other person buy from it. That's why you're not getting sales. And a lot of your brands lack swag. So let's first identify what swag is and isn't, so we can make the relation for your target audience. So essentially, in order to be able to identify your target audience, there's literally a 5-step process. Now, a lot of you guys are brain dead and don't really know, I don't know, you're just not, you don't want to be as educated to really sit down and understand the consumer or customer psychology. So we're going to go over it now so you can get it. So there are 5 main pillars, right, when it comes to your target audience, quote unquote, actually 4, then it funnels into the target audience. The first thing to identify is your brand identity. So I'm gonna go over brand identity. Once you've established your brand identity, you need your brand swag, like literally the swag of the brand. Once you've identified your brand swag, you need people who relate. Once you find people who relate, you need to cater your brand for them. So the brand needs to be catered for them. Only when you do these 4 things will you be able to define your target audience. So the best way for me to go over this is to break it into sections and to show you some examples of some brands that actually do this. So the first thing is brand identity. What is brand identity and why does it matter? All right, I want you to think about it like this. Brand identity is simply, if your brand was a person, who and what, if your brand was a person, who and how would they be? Would they be confident? Would they be smart? Would they be nerdy? Would they be swaggy? Like, I want you to get outside the box of where you're just thinking, I'm making a clothing brand, I'm making clothes and I'm just putting a logo on it. It's not that, right? To be fair, to some extent that works, but honestly, you guys are in the wrong niche. I think you guys need to be in TikTok shop instead and start selling like some clothes and graphic designs there. But if you actually want a clothing brand, you want to build an empire with a business with Shopify, you need to identify this. What is your brand identity? Like, if your brand was a person, like, would they be cool? Or would they be nerdy? Like, it's fine if they're nerdy. It's fine if they're a geek, like, you know, but you haven't defined that yet. So that's what your brand identity is. I'm telling you right now, please do not be the guy that goes on ChatGPT and like you make a name from ChatGPT and you don't actually spend time to think about how you want to make your brand. Okay, fine. Forget it. Let's say you use ChatGPT to define the name. That's completely fine. Understandable. However, if there's no time put into the actual behind the name, if you haven't actually identified, okay, let's say for example, ChatGPT gives you a piece of caramel for your brand name. Okay, at least if ChatGPT gave you the name, at least define your own meaning, define the brand identity. Please do not be like, yo, okay, cool, AI gave me a brand name, and what I'm gonna do right now is that I'm not actually gonna define the brand identity for my brand. Now, if you're gonna be that guy that also asks ChatGPT, what should my brand mean, then just sell your clothes on TikTok shop and leave this video alone, please, right? I'm gonna be honest though, ChatGPT is ass, right? It's terrible, no one's buying from that shit. If you go to ChatGPT and it tells you to name your brand Skyline because your brand is in the skies, like, I want you to actually like kind of look at this and really see it from a different perspective. No one is going to buy a brand that shows a lack of effort. People can tell the effort you put into the brand. There's some brand names that I call, like, for example, Ubon, right? That's such a niche name. It's really, I don't know what it means, but I think it's about movie and stuff. Like, you could have a crazy name and it's just defined for you. I want you guys to be able to think outside the box, because the biggest regret you're ever going to make is making a brand that doesn't make sense, or making a name for the brand that just genuinely doesn't make sense. All right, that's the first thing to define. You want to be able to take your time and be able to break your brand into sections, if that makes sense. Once you identify your brand identity and the definition of your brand, it's time to move on to the brand swag. So this is where you actually have fun with your brand. Like, this is where you actually spend some time thinking about how you want your brand to look. It's about the presentation. Just imagine this, right? Imagine you were going to an interview and you have to look a particular way. Are you telling me you're going to go over to that interview with, like, you know, with a tank top that's ripped, you know, your teeth are looking yellow? No, you're going to brush your teeth, you're going to buy a shirt, you're going to look clean. So now is the time to identify your brand swag. Like, I'm not going to lie, like, I think some of you guys actually aren't fashionable. a lot of people who make clothing brands aren't even fashionable themselves. Like, you don't even wear good clothes. You're not even good at fashion anyways. So you make a brand, and what you do is that you just push anything out. So you don't even understand how fashion works. You don't understand how the industry works. And you come into this business just trying to make a piece of clothing with a logo. But the problem you fall in under is that you're defeated and you're actually pushed to the side by people who are more experts and specialists in that fashion industry. You're positioning yourself as a generalist. You're trying to just make a tank top with a logo on it. Whereas you're competing with people who actually have swag, people who actually wear good clothes, with people who are actually good at what they do. Like, they actually look good, they actually wear the right clothes, they understand fitting, sizing, they get compliments on a day-to-day basis. And you're the person that hasn't even spent time to try to work on yourself or try to look good yourself, and you're trying to make clothes that are supposed to look good on others. But it's hypocritical, because what you're doing there is that you're trying to make this brand and you're just making clothes. You're just wasting manufacturers' time. You're not making anything swaggy. Okay, cool. Not every brand needs to be a streetwear brand, but your brand needs to fall into a niche. It needs to fall into a category. If I'm buying your clothes, if I go to your website and there's fitness, there's streetwear, there's apparel, there's this, there's that. The problem you have with that is that because your brand is so sporadic and there's so many different things, and you're not a big brand, there is a lack of definition. Like, you don't have a staple piece. You don't have one piece of clothing or one genre of clothing that I can identify myself with. Okay, and that's the big issue. For example, Louis Vuitton, they make fashion, luxury. Ralph Lauren, luxury. Yes, they make a plethora of clothes like sweaters, like shirts, but altogether it falls under luxury. You make fitness, then you're like, oh yeah, it would be really nice to make this, but you're not sticking to one thing. This is why your brand doesn't have swag. This is why your brand actually doesn't look good to anyone, right? It just looks like some clothes. But if you look at Ralph Lauren, there's a certain impression that there's a certain impression it gives you. You are impressioned upon by Ralph Lauren or by Louis Vuitton or by Gucci or by these big brands because they just have swag, right? That's their brand swag. Their brand swag might be luxury, royalty. Your brand swag is what? Shit, ass, poop. Like, you need to define what your brand swag. And your brand swag is so important because your brand swag is how a person feels when they wear the clothes. How they walk when they wear the clothes, how they talk when they wear the clothes, or the accessories, or anything that's a part of your brand. Swag doesn't mean it's stereotypical cool, and you don't have to be the next Cortez. You just need your own type of swag, your brand's own wave and movement. Something that cannot be replicated and only done by your brand and your brand alone. Alright, so I'm telling you, like, genuinely take some time defining your brand swag, because once you define your brand swag, what you're gonna see is you'll be able to make your clothes in a way that no one else can copy. Like, you're gonna start laughing because you're gonna see competitors trying to make their clothes on par with you. All right. Okay. So once you've identified the brand swag and identity, now you need people who relate. You need to find people who relate to the brand and understand their brand identity. Only people who relate understand the entire structure and the idea of the brand should be within your brand circle. You need to kind of treat your brand like a gang. You need to treat it like the mafia. Like, you need to be like, okay, this person can wear the clothes. You just don't fit the criteria. Sorry, pal. Like, okay. Let's put things into perspective. If, for example, you saw someone that is the complete opposite of who you want to wear your brand, how would you feel? You would probably feel like, yeah, cool, but like, okay, let's just put this into perspective. Let's say your target audience, so the people that you want to wear your clothes, are a bunch of teenagers, right? So 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, people in college, university, etc., right? So they have their clothes, they're wearing your clothes, they're going to college, they're going to uni. You have this type of idea of who are going to wear your clothes. But when you go out in public, you see people wear your clothes, but it's all like moms, it's like granddads. It's like how would you feel, right? It'd be weird because it's like, who the fuck gave you these clothes? Like, it's okay, you appreciate that moms and grandpas are wearing your clothes, but imagine those are the only people that wear your clothes. Your target audience is 18 and 19-year-olds, but for some reason we're having moms and granddads wearing our clothes. Doesn't make sense. So I need you to understand that your brand is like a gang. Do not fuck this part up. All right? You literally, your fitness clothes, like tight clothes, you'd be kind of confused because what about fit people? Like, the clothes will look good on fit people. That's why you made it. You made it out of like a stretchy material, and it's like, it hugs the body and stuff like that. So things like that. So essentially, you want to be able to have qualified people wear your brand and unqualified people want to wear your brand. Not being able to, but wanting to. Right? Now, the final thing now is that you need to have your brand cater for the customer. Essentially, you need to reward your customer by catering your brand for the customer. If someone has taken the time and attention to sit down and really, really understand the brand and really fuck with the brand, really cop it and like rep it. Like you see them on TikTok wearing the clothes, talking about it. You see them on a day-to-day basis wearing the clothes, being proud of it. Your brand needs to be catered for them. It's the bare minimum. And what I mean by your brand needs to be catered for them is, think about it like this, right? If you went to a restaurant, right? You went to a restaurant and you spent £500 or $500 on that restaurant. The bare minimum you're gonna expect is good table service, good customer experience. You're gonna go there, they're gonna give you the right utensils, the fork and knife to eat, the fucking plates is gonna be there clean. Like that's the bare minimum. But a lot of you guys just make your site and it's just like, yeah guys, get whatever you want. Like what the fuck is that, right? You genuinely need to take your time and being intentional about little things, from packaging, right? Custom packaging. Okay, cool. You can't afford boxes to ship out to your customer. What about polyester bags? They're not that expensive, right? Even if you can't get polyester bags, or even if this is your first drop, adding a little bit of customization, stickers, tags, like this is the bare minimum. I don't get it. Like people just make clothes and just, it's kind of ass, right? The website needs to genuinely feel like this is an experience, right? I'm not saying you need a custom crazy website, but if your website isn't going to be crazy and like cool UFX, make it simple. Just make it super simple for the customer to buy. Do not include any customer friction. Make the site clean, make it optimized for mobile. Like when they swipe on the site, it should feel buttery smooth, okay? Adding to the cart should feel amazing. Everything should be good, And when you define these 4 things, when you identify your brand identity, you establish your brand swag, you get people who relate, and your brand is catered for the customer, boom, you have your target audience. Your target audience is literally an accumulation of all these 4 things, right? Like genuinely. And there's a reason why, for example, brands with 8,000 followers are making 1K, more than that, by the way, from just one Instagram post. I made another video talking about it. For example, this brand, right? I made a video talking about this brand. They did around more than 1K from just this one post. All right, like bro, like come on, like look, don't ask me for shit. Like there's a little bit of, like this brand has their own shit going on. Like look at this. This is the brand swag. Like I know, like I've talked about this brand so much, but this is one of the brands I've seen that has their own type of swag. They're posting orders. Look at the amount of people that bought it, buying. Like bear in mind, £222, £45. Look at that. A person just dropped almost £300 on their site. In US dollars, that'd be $400. Like, come on, bro. Like, the only way you're gonna be able to get people to do this, like, look at this, $159. Look at this. Only way you're gonna get people to do this shit is by really having some brand swag, and your brand is shit. That's why your brand isn't selling. It's like I'll give you the framework and I'll talk about this, but it's up to you to apply it. Your brand swag, right, and your brand being able to look like this, like damn like this on a move board, like having cool people wear your shit, is defined by these 4 things that I just talked about, right? So honestly, if you want to identify your brand swag and you want to be able to establish your brand identity, you really need to take your time in order to make things work. Now, let's say, for example, you don't know how to do this and you're like, what the hell? Okay, cool. I understand these 4 processes. Well, let me show you. There's one thing we have for our clients. It's called the content engine, right? So we do this for our clients, obviously, because I'm a consultant and we help brands scale, obviously with organic positioning, with our new offer called Butterfly Effect. So the whole point of Butterfly Effect is that everything compounds, right? Because think about this. If you was to make a brand in January, you would only start to see the results maybe in July. The reason why is because obviously the manufacturing, the sampling, the content, and for your brand to become profitable, it will take a long time. But this is the whole point of the Butterfly Effect. All organically, by the way. We'll focus on the content organically. But think about this, right? So a content engine that we have, for example, is we identify the target audience's interests. We get 8 of their interests, right? 8 of the target audience's interests. We do some research with our clients and then we're able to define 8 interests. Once we're able to define 8 interests, we establish content formats, right? So the point you're trying to do here is if I know what you're interested in and if I know the type of content you like to watch, then all I need to do is combine what you're interested in with the type of content you like to watch and then put my brand in the middle. My brand is the middleman. You're getting an experience, right? You don't feel cheated and you see something you like, right? This is literally just, it's basic psychology, right? I'm psychologically making associations. For example, we make Pinterest pages, how you take pictures, etc. Even content formats, like we have pages like this where we're doing in-depth research on other brands and their content. This is the reason why our clients are fucking crushing it, right? One that does this so well, and I'm sure you guys have seen, or for example, a brand that does so well is Want and Need, right? So if you watch their content, they will always give you a hook, a crazy hook, right? For example, if you watch a content piece like this, right, you'll see someone play the game. It's going to the point that people already know the brand is there, or this is a hook, or this is like kind of like a setup for their brand, but they enjoy the process anyways. Like, look at this. You watch this video, you don't feel cheated because number one, obviously the clothes are good, you got a good experience, and you're like, damn, let me actually check this out and buy it. right? So that's the whole point. If I know your interest, if I know the type of content format you like, and it's different for every brand, then all I need to do is position my clothes as the middleman, right? So yeah, I just told you guys how to define your target audience. But yeah, if you're interested in positioning your brand as an authority or an industry or a cult, like what we do with our clients, then by all means DM me on Instagram. We can talk it up there, or you can just, I guess, book a call. But if you prefer to chop it up on Instagram, let's do it. But yeah, I've shown you how to break it down and get your brand identity here and your target audience. But by all means, good luck with your brand, and I hope and I wish the best for you guys.